3 bone-chilling true bar horror stories that will haunt you forever. The bar was dark, shadows dancing like ghosts in every corner, an unsettling thrill hanging thick in the air. Laughter turned hollow, and whispers of old tragedies echoed in the minds of loyal patrons. But the stories that lurked beneath the surface? They were chilling enough to keep you up at night. One fateful evening, the bartender, a wise old man with a voice that chilled the bone, began his tale. He spoke of the night the regulars vanished, just gone without a trace. It was as if the ground had swallowed them whole. The clock struck midnight, and that s when he felt it, a sudden drop in temperature, enough to freeze your bones. Rumor had it that, every few years, a strange new face would appear at the bar. This figure was always dressed in black, a tattered jacket that seemed to absorb the dim light. As patrons sipped their drinks, they would catch glimpses of hollow eyes watching from the shadows. Murmurs spread like wildfire. Was this specter a harbinger of doom? Or did they bring something more sinister? Some claimed to have seen them beckoning with a crooked finger right before someone mysteriously disappeared. The anxiety clawed at the bar's regulars, and the tension was electric, like the charge before a storm. As the bartender's story wound through the corners of the room, the air grew thick with suspense. Another chilling tale unfolded the night a seeker of thrills dared to joke about the ghostly figure. What could it possibly do? He laughed, and that laughter turned to ash as a cold breath swept through the bar. The lights flickered, and whispers enveloped him. When he turned to face his friends, he was suddenly alone, just gone. The remaining patrons spoke in hushed voices, some trembling and others wide-eyed as they replayed that harrowing night in their minds. Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button, it really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. Just as the final word settled, a door creaked open at the far end of the bar. All eyes snapped to the entrance. The air chilled even further, as if the walls themselves were holding their breath. A gust of wind swept through, and there it was, an unfamiliar silhouette stepping inside, the very figure from the bartender's stories. Heartbeats raced while everyone sat suspended in a mix of fear and fascination. The clinking of glass and the murmurs of disbelief filled the air. What had brought this shadowy figure here? And which story would unfold next? Would the next patron be drawn in, or was there something darker at play waiting for its moment to strike? The night was just beginning, and the clock struck once more. The figure stepped into the bar, and it was as if a black hole had entered, sucking the warmth from the room. Patrons whispered, glancing at each other, their drinks momentarily forgotten. The bartender, usually a stalwart of calm, moved slowly, almost cautiously, to wipe down the bar, avoiding the figure's gaze. The newcomer scanned the room, those hollow eyes piercing through the flickering shadows. They lingered on a table where a young woman, Sarah, sat with her friends. She was lively, her laughter ringing like a bell, but there was something in that gaze that made the hairs on her neck stand up. "Who are you?" one of her friends whispered, nervously glancing toward the shadow. Sarah smirked, dismissing the unease. "Looks like a lost soul to me." "Probably just here for a drink," she replied. But deep down, an unsettling chill settled in her stomach. As the figure moved closer, the atmosphere grew heavier. It approached the bar, leaning against it, staring straight at the bartender. Silence engulfed the room, everyone held their breath, heartbeats echoing. The bartender nodded slowly, anxiety etched on his face. The figure reached into the tattered jacket, pulling out a small item, a glimmering silver locket, catching the light just enough to send shivers down Sarah's spine. "It's a family heirloom," the figure rasped, voice like gravel on glass. "One that's lost its way, much like the ones who have disappeared." The words hung in the air, thick with implication. Gasps filled the space as patrons exchanged wide-eyed glances, realizing the once easily dismissed tales were bubbling up to reality. "Let us get out of here," one of Sarah's friends urged, but she felt glued to her seat. Something compelled her to stay. The bartender, now pale, asked with a shaky voice, "What do you want?" The figure's lips curled into a haunting smile, and Sarah's breath quickened as darkness wrapped around the room like a noose. "Just a little conversation." "I believe something of yours belongs to me," it said, casting a meaningful glance around the bar. At that moment, shadows began dancing along the walls, moving as if they were alive. The bartender seemed frozen, but finally, he shook his head. "This isn't your place." "We don't want trouble," he warned, but there was a quaver in his tone, like memories he wished to forget clawing their way back into the light. The lights flickered again, plunging the room into almost complete darkness. A deafening silence fell, the kind that sets in moments before disaster. Sarah's heart raced as the figure leaned in closer, whispering just loud enough for the others to hear, "One will answer for the sins of the past, and it may just be the one who dares to laugh." Before anyone could react, the lights exploded back on. The figure was gone. Just vanished. Patrons were left gasping and looking for answers. Sarah shot up, adrenaline pumping, her head spinning. Who had just threatened them? And why was there a sudden echo of laughter from the other side of the bar, the echo of someone missing? But then, it happened. A distinct crunching sound broke the silence, a chilling noise that shot through her. It wasn't just fear coursing through her, it was pure terror. Someone was sitting alone at the far end of the bar, head down, their laughter sounds distorted and eerily familiar. Panic flooded the room. Was this a familiar face? Or one condemned to despair? The patrons felt helpless as the clock ticked closer to midnight. Shadows crept closer, and Sarah's heart beat wildly. What would happen next? Who would take the next step into darkness? The clock struck 12, and the air grew cold again. Was it just the wind, or was something lurking, waiting to claim its next victim? The bar felt alive, each creak and groan echoing the tension in the air. Patrons glanced nervously at the figure slumped at the far end, thinking maybe they were just imagining it. But Sarah couldn't shake the sensation gnawing at her gut, pulling her toward the mystery like a moth to a flame. Her friends, eyes wide with fear, hissed for her to leave. "Sarah, come on. We should go." One of them pleaded, but something deep within kept her anchored. It was the laughter, that chilling sound. It was so familiar, almost comforting, a reminder of playful times that now felt cursed in this heavy atmosphere. Ignoring her friend's frantic whispers, she took a hesitant step toward the figure. Each footfall felt like a declaration. The others watched her, mouths agape as if she was heading to a grave. As she drew closer, the air thickened, suffocating her. The figure finally lifted their head. A gasp echoed through the bar. It was a face she knew well, twisted by shadows and long-buried memories. Tommy. Her childhood friend missing for years and declared dead after they found his belongings scattered near the river. Tommy. Her voice wavered, uncertainty wrapping around her words. The figure smiled a grotesque grin that sent shivers down her spine. "You came to find me, didn't you?" His eyes, once bright, were now dark pools of despair. "They never believed me, Sarah. Not after the laughter, not after the last night we spent together." The bartender, wiping his shaking hands on his apron, finally spoke up. "This isn't funny. Leave her alone." But Tommy didn't turn away. Instead, he leaned closer to Sarah, whispers curling tight around her ears. "You need to understand, Sarah. A sacrifice was made, and I'm still here because of it." His voice carried an unearthly echo, like his words were meant for someone else to hear. "And your laughter, it holds the key." The walls felt closer, shadows creeping in like predators. A chill rolled over the patrons, freezing them in place. The clock's steady tick grew louder, almost mocking them. With every passing second, Sarah felt the weight of time, of loss, of regrets heavy on her shoulders. "Stop this. You're not real." One friend shouted, a mix of desperation and anger coloring their voice. Am I not? Tommy replied, his face twisting in a way that made Sarah's skin crawl. Not as real as the darkness that summoned me back. Someone here has to answer for what happened. Tonight is the night of reckoning. Panic echoed through the bar again, as eyes darted among the patrons. Who did he mean? Who would be the one to answer? As the silence stretched, the bartender tried to light a candle, hands trembling. Suddenly, Tommy laughed, a terror-filled sound that crawled under their skin. You still think you can escape your past? He got to his feet, towering over the bunch of them like a ghost made real. The lights flickered and dimmed again, warping the room into a nightmare of faces frozen in horror. Clarity crashed over Sarah. She had to do something. There had to be a way to set things right, to end this cycle. What do you want from us? She shouted, her voice shaking but resolute. What do you need? Tommy's smile widened, revealing something dark and sinister behind it. One will pay the toll for the sins born long ago. The laughter was never the answer, it was a curse. The room felt ready to implode, walls vibrating with a tension so thick it could choke. Just then, the mirrored wall behind the bar shattered, sending shards flying everywhere. Amidst the chaos, a voice whispered from the shadows, time to choose, Sarah. Will you let the laughter drown you in despair, or will you face the darkness? As the shards fell, reflecting the mayhem, Sarah felt the ground shift beneath her. Whispers of the lost filled her ears. She had to decide. What had been said was no longer a riddle, it was an ultimatum. Would she allow her past to drown her, or would she kick the darkness back into the shadows? The choice loomed, unforgiving, but there was no absence of stakes, and everything hung in the balance. Her heart raced as she glanced. Back at the crowd, faces twisting into expressions of anticipation mixed with dread. At that moment, she felt the weight of their collective past pressing down hard. Would she dare to laugh in the face of what was coming? The echoes of what Tommy had promised reverberated through her, waiting to be answered. The silence stretched, an unbearable tension coiling tighter around them. Almost instinctively, Sarah took another step closer, drawn by an unseen force. The disarray in the bar melted away. Tommy's presence was magnetic, dragging her thoughts into a pit of confusion and fear. What do you mean, what toll? She managed to ask, desperation cracking through her previously steady tone. Each word felt heavy, as if spiders were crawling up her spine, leaving a cool terror in their wake. Tommy's laughter echoed again, but this time it wasn't just laughter, it rang like a bell, chilling and hollow. You've forgotten so much, Sarah. But I remember. You all laughed while I transitioned. The words hung in the air, heavy with implication. Someone took what was mine, but I'm back to reclaim it. A friend behind her whispered fervently, get away from him. You don't know what he's become. But Sarah couldn't tear her gaze away from Tommy's eyes, swirling with torment and warning. Reclaim what? You're dead, Tommy. She shot back, voice shaking. You can't just I can, he interrupted. Because someone brought me back. Someone is always searching for the shadows. The air crackled. Every patron could feel it, the tension was a living thing, wiggling its fingers around each throat. The bartender finally stepped forward, a mix of anger and fear twisting his features. This isn't a joke. You're just a memory, a bad one. He turned to the crowd, desperation creeping into his voice. Get out. Now. But the door, once a reliable escape, slammed shut. The sound echoed ominously, a finality that settled like suffocating fog in the room. Gasps filled the air, and now the patrons were truly prisoners of their own fears. Leave, and you might still hold on to your sanity, Tommy said softly, his voice now a lethal whisper. But one will pay tonight, and it will be someone you least expect. A chilling realization swept over Sarah. The laughter they thought was just youthful exuberance was part of something far darker. It wasn't merely a curse, it was an invitation to turn on one another, to scrutinize motives and secrets. "Why would you do this, Tommy?" she pressed, her heart thudding against her ribs. "What do you want us to do?" "Expose the truth," he said, his grin spreading wider. "Who among you knows what really happened that night?" Whispers bubbled among the patrons. Eyes darted from face to face, uncertainty coloring their expressions. Sarah felt the walls close in, echoing the chaos rising within her. Panic surged, an electric current racing across the bar. "Everyone knows you were lost, Tommy. Why turn on us?" someone shouted, voice cracking under pressure. "That's where you're mistaken," Tommy's voice cut through the chaos like a knife. "Someone in this very room knew everything but chose to bury it. I'm here for them." Sarah's pulse quickened, and she fought against the dread. The darkness had a name, but could she utter it? A sense of betrayal hung thick in the air as she looked around. Who had betrayed Tommy? What had started as whispers of laughter now morphed into echoes of something foul. "Tick-tock, the fun is about to begin," Tommy uttered, lowering his gaze to the cracked floor, then back up to them. Suddenly, the clock above the bar chimed ominously, jarring the atmosphere. The air felt electric, heavy scripts of fate woven into each tick. Sarah came the echo of her name, floating from the shadows. Was it her friends? Was it Tommy? The voices converged, layers upon layers of suspicion and fear. They all knew one truth: one of them was key to unlocking the horror that had invaded their lives. Intense heat radiated from her chest as she clutched her arms, seeking comfort that would not come. Now, standing in a grasp of uncertainty, she looked over her friends, grappling with suspicion and fear. A chilling thought struck her: if laughter was a curse and sacrifices were to be made, could she bear the weight of it? Could she defend her innocence or expose someone else's? "Make your choice," Tommy commanded, voice a low growl. As whispers cascaded into frenzied worries, the clock chimed again, crowding Sarah's mind with dread. But she had to decide now. Who would pay the toll? In the eye of stormy eyes and shifting shadows, she felt fragmented, like pieces of a puzzle assembling without purpose. Those shadows promised they would take one, but who? With the clock still ticking, the suspense thickened, each second stretching into eternity. Everything would change in the blink of an eye. Would they face the darkness together, or fall to it one by one? The entire bar felt like it was holding its breath, waiting for the first drop of chaos to spill over. Sarah stood frozen, heart racing, as Tommy's gaze bore into her. The fear coursing through her veins fogged her mind, but one thought stood out amidst the haze: someone here belonged to that cursed night. Tommy's return was the threshold, a monstrous reckoning built upon betrayal. Cries of alarm swirled around the dimly lit space, gathering like a storm. "This isn't real," shouted one of her friends, Brian, desperately shaking his head, as if willing away the darkness. "It can't be." But Tommy's laughter cut through the disbelief, sharp and unsettling. "Reality is what we make of it, Brian. And you all decided to bury it deep. How's that working out for you?" He surveyed the crowd, those once carefree faces now twisted in panic. "Look, you're scaring everyone," another patron yelled, trying to regain control. But the bartender hung on to his post like a man clinging to the edge of a cliff. He gritted his teeth, fear visible in every tense muscle. "You've got no power here. You can't keep us like this." Tommy leaned into that proclamation, a smirk plastered across his face. "Oh, but you're wrong. You are my puppet show tonight." Each string pulls back to that night, where laughter echoed alongside a scream, my scream. Sarah's breath caught in her throat, a mix of dread and regret wrapped around her heart. She felt the heat on her skin intensify, her instincts screaming for her to run. "We didn't know," she blurted, desperate for Tommy to see the truth. "We were just kids, we couldn't have imagined kids." Tommy cut her off again, tone chilling. "You call yourselves kids? You've grown. You've lived your lives, following the paths set by your ignorance. Every single one of you carries a burden. But one of you holds my truth. His eyes darted across the room. Friends turned to friends, masks slipping as fear morphed into accusations. The sense of blame thickened the air, intoxicating and suffocating. I can guess, Sarah thought, racking her mind as Tommy's words spun around her like vengeful spirits. But who? She shot an uncertain glance at Brian, whose face twisted into disbelief and fear. Could it have been him? Or perhaps Jen, always the quiet one, hiding in the shadows? Closing her eyes tightly, Sarah squeezed her fists, trying to wade through the torrent of anxiety. Your minds twist with suspicion, Tommy observed, his piercing eyes burning through the storm of uncertainty. Embrace it. Let it consume you, because together, you'll never escape this. Suddenly, the clock chimed again, a cruel reminder of mortality, with each tick echoing like a death knell. In the back, she caught sight of Billy, his trembling hands clasped together. We should leave, he whispered urgently. We can find help. But Tommy, with the confidence of a dark king, raised his hand. And how will you escape true judgment? The door is locked, my friends. You must face the tormentors within before you can even consider fleeing. As his voice slithered around them, a single question unfurled in Sarah's mind, creeping like a vine, who had hidden the truth the deepest. The shadows in the room twisted, every corner seemed alive, breathing. A scream erupted from the far side as one intended to bolt for the windows, only to be halted by Tommy's magnetic force. Fear spiraled as gasps filled the air. Sarah's heart raced. They were stuck not just physically, but in a web of dark memories, pulling them back to the surface. Tick-tock, Tommy whispered again, the sound tightening around her chest as if warning of imminent disaster. Someone's going to pay. Isn't that right, Sarah? His words lashed out, and the room fell silent again, every soul listening, every heartbeat sinking with the insistent ticking. As shadows danced around them, Sarah's mind raced, visions of betrayal etching into her thoughts. Could she unveil the truth before the clock struck its final hour? Or would this night culminate in a sacrifice that none could survive? Just then, Tommy leaned in. Closer, a glint of something dark in his eyes. Choose wisely, because it's time for the truth and it waits for no one. Who would it be? As the clock ticked on, dread coiled tighter, threatening to snap. Would one truly break the silence, or would all fall victim to the darkness? What horrors lay beyond the fragile veil of their choices? The tension in the bar cracked like dry kindling, and for a moment, time lost all meaning. Eyes darted from Tommy to each other, seeking solace, but all they found were mirrored fears. A primal instinct kicked in. Sarah could almost feel the collective heartbeat of her friends, thumping anxiously. She needed clarity, a way through this nightmare. Ask them, Tommy. Jen finally shouted, her voice trembling but defiant. If you think we're guilty, then ask. Let us put it all out in the open. Tommy's smirk widened, and he tilted his head. Ah, how brave of you, Jen. But bravery is often misplaced. No, it's not enough to ask, we need to expose the truth. Someone here is wrapped in shadows of deceit. I wonder, how far would each of you go to protect yourselves? The room held its breath again as suspicion turned into fear, and Sarah felt it crawling up her spine. Betrayal brewed like a storm, and she realized that the lines were blurred even further. How could they pinpoint the one who had wronged Tommy the most? Murmurs of doubt swept between them like a fog that thickened with each second. Why don't we take a little trip down memory lane? Tommy suggested, an unsettling grin painted on his lips. He pointed toward the shadowy corner, shrouded in gloom. The bar's corner held a devilish allure, and his fingers seemed to pull at the fabric of Sarah's memories, stirring them into a frenzy. What do you mean? Brian croaked, his voice shaky. We can't go back. You can't, I can. We all can. Tommy waved his hand dramatically, and suddenly the lights flickered. A collective gasp erupted as the bar transformed. Walls warped, and the air thickened, heavy with tension and something else fear. What had once felt like a celebratory night now resembled a ghostly echo of the past. Laughter and music twisted into something sinister. The chaotic energy from the bar bled away, replaced by the faint sounds of an older, darker version of themselves. No, no. Billy cried, clutching his head as memories crashed over him like waves. Please, not this. We should forget. But it was too late. Images flickered between the patrons' visions of a night they had tried to erase. A drunken mistake, a tragic end, laughter turning to screams. Sarah stumbled back, recognizing the faces of her friends in the shadows. They wore masks of guilt so heavy it warred against the mania in Tommy's eyes. Who were you trying to bury? Tommy's voice boomed, echoing like thunder. You left me there. You shrugged off your guilt like a coat. But now I'm here to remind you of the truth, and I won't rest until he's avenged. A wheel of emotions spun wildly, anger, pity, horror. Sarah's heart raced. Could one of her friends actually be the key? Panic washed over her, urging her to pull them back, to save them from this reckoning. The world around her twisted again, shadows darting in front of her eyes. She squeezed her fists together, trying to focus. What do we do? She cried out, the fear in her voice palpable. Tommy, please. Let us talk about this. We can figure this out. But he shook his head, that wicked smile never faltering. No, Sarah. It's too late for words. One of you has to step forward. One must take the blame or face the consequences together. Tommy's menacing tone echoed off the walls, each word a hammer driving the nails of fate deeper into their hearts. The ticking clock ran out of control in Sarah's mind. What if the one who had tried to forget was already sealed in eternal darkness? Suddenly, she noticed something shifting in the corner of her eye, an unfamiliar figure. Yes, but was it a friend or another shadow of the past? Time slipped away like sand through her fingers. With each moment lost, the truth loomed larger, threatening to consume them all. Sarah, look out! Brian shouted, his voice laced with urgency, but adrenaline surged through her as she spun, almost instinctively ready to face the unknown. Just tell us the truth. She screamed, desperate to unravel the threads of their fears. As silence enveloped the room, an unnatural stillness followed. The weight of choices lay heavily like swords above their heads. Would the coming revelations destroy everything they knew, or set them free? As she braced herself for the impact, darkness seeped into the corners of her vision. The real horror awaited, just poised to strike. Who would take the first step into the dark? The answer lingered in the air, and time was running out. The room felt charged, almost electric. Sarah stood frozen, pulse racing, eyes darting toward the corner where shadows lurked just beyond the flickering lights. Confused whispers filled the air, suffocating her spirit, as she caught a glimpse of that elusive figure again. Her heart pounded like a war drum. Who are you? She demanded, voice barely above a whisper, tinged with a mixture of fear and determination. Tommy's laugh echoed off the warped walls, hauntingly delightful. Ah, no one yet, but it seems they might hold the key to your salvation or your downfall. The chilling sentiment seeped deeper into her bones. She glanced at Jen, Brian, and Billy. They were as lost in their thoughts as she was, each grappling with their demons, not just Tommy's anger but their own shadows creeping in from the depths of their past. What do you want from us? Jen spat, her bravery quaking under pressure. Just tell us already. Tommy stepped closer to them, his presence laced with intoxicating malice. I want you to remember. Each of you has buried a piece of truth, and one must admit his or her part, or face the reckoning together. His eyes shifted, a predator tracking prey. Who dares to step into the light? Who is willing to shed the skin of lies? Another flicker of movement caught Sarah's eye. This time, it wasn't an innocuous shadow but a figure emerging pulled from the entrails of dark memory like a phoenix from ashes, yet grotesquely warped. Drenched in despair, they approached, and the collective gasp of her group filled the choking silence that it was a visage from the past, the face of their friend, Jason, who had been swallowed by the night they thought they could forget. But there was something wrong. This Jason held a haunting scowl, dripping with heartache and accusation. "No," Billy murmured as if the wind had been ripped from his sails. "This isn't happening." "It is," Tommy said, a mock pity curling his lip. "The truth never disappears. It festers under the skin. It haunts your dreams, just like it haunts him." With the figure now firmly settled within their midst, Jason turned his hollow gaze toward Sarah. "You all abandoned me," he rasped, voice hauntingly distant yet painfully clear. "Each of you ran when I needed you the most." Tears pricked at Sarah's eyes. "Jason, we thought you were dead. We searched everywhere. We lies." He interrupted, the bitterness cutting through her defense like a sharpened knife. "You ran, and I was left alone. Why? They fed you fear, and you let it consume your friendship. We were supposed to be a family." The accusation hung in the air like a noose. Sarah's chest tightened, emotions spiraling. Memories she wished to hide crept back, arguments, drunken nights that spiraled, and a cataclysm that had splintered their bond. "We didn't know," she cried, the weight of guilt suffocating her. "Please forgive us." "They're not the only ones to blame," Tommy interjected, shifting the focus. "Consider this a charge of accountability. Will you sacrifice one to save yourselves, or must you all face the inevitability of retribution?" The air thickened with tension as scared glances were exchanged. Billy's voice cracked like dried glass. "No. We can't just let someone take the blame. That's not justice, it's cowardice." Tommy's eyes turned manic, a glimmering delight in the chaos unfolding before him. "So, who will it be? Will someone stand up for Jason? Or will you let fear dictate your fate?" The question hung, dangling like a pendulum, counting down their doom. In an instant, the lights flickered again, plunging them into darkness. "Make your choice." Tommy's final whisper slithered through the gloom, a venomous promise echoing in their hearts. Breathless, with only the sound of their racing hearts thumping in unison, they stood frozen. Time slowed, every tick of the clock adding to the mounting tension that bubbled like a storm ready to erupt. Who among them would step into the light of truth, and who would remain cloaked in shadows? With decisions looming, the darkness was only beginning to reveal its terrifying grip. What lay beyond the edge of revelation, and who would claim ownership of the haunting past? The question writhed in the air, desperate for answers. The silence swallowed them whole, a vacuum of dread that seemed to stretch into eternity. Sarah felt the weight of each heartbeat, each breath, heavy against her chest, like a pair of iron chains dragging her deeper into despair. Tom's laughter rang in her ears, mocking their hesitation. "Who's going to break the silence?" he taunted, flickering shadows casting eerie shapes in every corner. "It could be liberating, you know." Jason, or whatever remained of him, stood at the center of it all, his features twisted into something alien. Sarah's breath hitched as she searched for a trace of her old friend in that hollow gaze. I can't bear this," she whispered, turning away from the apparition that had once been a source of joy. "None of you can," Jason said, his voice echoing through the hall. "But you have to. It's the only way." He stepped closer, and the air grew dense, colder. "You all promised you'd never leave me behind." The darkness wrapped around them, choking off her thoughts. Billy, trembling, took a hesitant step forward. "But what if the truth destroys us? Better to die in the light than live tangled in darkness," Jen urged, though uncertainty dripped from her words. It wasn't just the fear of what they'd done, it was what they might have to confront next. "Look at him." Brian spun to face Jason's ghostly form. "He's been living this hell where you left him. How is that not torture?" Tommy's eyes danced with frenetic energy, anticipation crackling in the air. "Ah, yes. Feel that tension. The guilt, the fear. It's like music. Who's ready to play your part? Suddenly, a gust of wind whipped through the room, flickering the lights crazily until they finally died out, snuffing the small rays of light and leaving them in an abyss. A scream echoed from somewhere deep, a sound so raw it could only be rendered from the depths of insanity. No! Sarah shouted, hands instinctively shooting out in front of her, trying to grasp onto something, anything. We can't do this. We can't give in to the darkness. Then what's your choice? Tommy's voice slithered like a serpent, taunting her resolve. Are you willing to lose your friend again to save your skin? A weighty pause engulfed them, every second stretching painfully. Billy, caught between anger and anguish, clenched his fists. We need to confront it. We need to take responsibility. It's the only way to set Jason free. Freedom comes at a price, Jason echoed, the shadows in his eyes gaining intensity. Are you ready to pay it? The flickering lights blinked back momentarily, revealing a cheeky chuckle from Tommy, who spun in delight. Choosing to embrace truth means courting chaos. If you dare. In that heartbeat, as the lights flickered back to life, Sarah glimpsed something in each of their eyes, fear, yes, but also a flicker of something else, defiance. Together, Jen finally declared, standing firm against the tide of fear. We face whatever we've buried. Together. Ha! The brave front. Tommy hissed, gleeful malice lacing his words. But what if it's too late to save one of your own? Choices have consequences. The darkness encroached, shadows creeping closer as they stood aligned, united against the storm. Sarah cast a desperate glance at Jason, whose expression remained haunted but showed a glimmer of hope. Something in her began to shift, a seed of determination with the power to transcend the horror, but time was running out, and the pressing weight of their secrets threatened to engulf them. As the lights flickered again, this time for good, a chilling scream cut through the air, piercing their resolve. What they uncovered could bring either salvation or damnation. Would they emerge from this nightmare alive, or would the past drag them into an abyss deeper than the shadows that surrounded them? Just then, a deep rumble shook the ground beneath their feet, as if the very foundation held the weight of their choices. The walls began to close in, a silent reminder that reckoning awaited. And in their struggle, a chilling realization swept through Sarah, the true horror of the night had only just begun. The corners of the room closed in, shadowed faces flickering like candle flames in a tempest. Sarah's heart raced, the deep rumble echoing in her chest. Her hands trembled as she remained anchored to the truth. They had to confront it. Do you remember? Jason's voice cracked through the growing darkness. Do you remember that night? A collective shudder swept through the group, memories clawing at the edges of their minds. Each of them tried to shake off the feeling, but the truth clung to them like a second skin. The air thickened as they recalled the night of the accident, how, in a moment of carelessness, they had held Jason's future in their hands and let it slip away. Billy's voice broke the stillness. We thought we could outrun it. That we could just forget. His trembling hands gripped Sarah's shoulder. But the truth is here, isn't it? Yes. You can't ignore what you've done. Tommy yelled, laughter interspersed with a mocking tone that reminded them all of their transgressions. You thought burying the past would keep it quiet? Oh, it's far from quiet. Behind Tommy, shadows twisted and turned, taking the shapes of the memories they desperately wanted to forget. A ghostly scene erupted in the corner, projecting flashes of Jason's last moments, a reckless night, laughter morphing into screams. No. Jen gasped, raising her hands as if to block the vision. We can't, not like this. We can't face this. But the images rolled forward, unstoppable. Jason stepped into the light, his translucent features twisting in pain. You left me behind. This is your burden now. You can't run. You have to confront it together. The air grew thick with dread, suffocating in its intensity. They were trapped in the web of their past, every breath mingling with guilt. Face your fear or let it eat you alive. Jason shouted, echoing off the walls. His form shimmered, the shadows encroaching on him like a relentless tide. "Face your fear," echoed Tommy, a sinister glee injecting itself into his tone. "Are you brave enough to look?" Brian clenched his teeth, his body vibrating with a mix of rage and regret. "We need to hold on to hope. There's got to be a way out." But the walls continued to inch toward them. Sarah felt the heat of despair creeping up her throat, the weight of her conscience crashing down like a wave. "We will not let it take us. We won't allow the past to define us," she cried, her voice raw and strained. The lights flickered again, the sound of the static buzzing in the air like a swarm of angry bees. "If you stand united, speak the truth," Jason urged, swirling shadows bearing down on him. "That's the only way to break the curse." "Together," Jen echoed, her voice rising above the darkness. "We're better than our past. We can change this. Gather what's lost." Jason's voice morphed into a haunting echo. With that, they felt an unexpected surge of energy. The shadows seemed momentarily hesitant. Sarah pressed forward, heart pounding with each step. "We will set you free, Jason." But the moment hung in the air, charged with uncertainty. The shadows writhed around them, ready to lash out at their emerging bravery. Just then, the earth beneath their feet trembled again, more violently this time, as though the building itself was shuddering in anticipation of their next choice. Dust rained from the ceiling like ashes from a dying fire, and the flickering lights cast erratic shapes across the walls that in the swift chaos. Jason's final words erupted from the depths of darkness, reverberating with deep dread. "You're not ready for what's to come." And before they could unearth the meaning behind his warning, a loud crash echoed through the hall, jarring them into a staggering silence. In that shocking void, the question loomed in Sarah's mind: had they started a journey of atonement, or unleashed something far more sinister? With darkness still closing in, they knew the battle was just beginning. The darkness loomed, thick and oppressive, but something shifted in the air as Sarah faced the shadows enclosing them. Gritting her teeth, she stepped closer to Jason's apparition, determination sharpening her resolve. "We're here to face what we've done. We won't be swallowed by your anger." Tommy's laughter echoed off the walls, turning into a grotesque symphony of accusation. "Oh, but don't you see? The more you resist, the tighter the noose becomes. You can't free your friend without first acknowledging your guilt, without laying bare your secrets." Brian, trembling and pale, hissed, "What do you want from us? Look at what we've become, terrified and broken. We came here to find peace." "No peace awaits those unwilling to confront their past," Jason said, his voice wavering yet filled with a tragic echo of hope. "Each of you carries a piece of me. We were intertwined, and yet, you turned your backs. You suffocated your laughter in my absence." Sarah's heart ached. The truth struck her with undeniable force. It wasn't just a careless accident. "We thought it would be easier to forget. We loved you, Jason." Jason's gaze softened momentarily, revealing the flicker of the friend they once knew. "But love turned to ashes when you didn't fight for me. And now, the shadows want a tribute." A stillness enveloped them, and dread clawed at the edges of their resolve. Tension pulsed in every heartbeat, the air thick with the weight of their unacknowledged fears. It was time to dig deeper. It was time to choose. The clock ticked ominously in the background. One by one, each second past the gravity of their destiny tightened. The walls inched closer, each muffled thud echoing the angst of buried memories. "Enough!" Sarah shouted against the suffocating gloom. "Jason, Tommy, whoever you are, this dance is over. We will not be your puppets. We take responsibility together." Laughter erupted from Tommy, a sharp knife against the tension. "You truly believe saying words will be enough to erase the stains on your soul? One of you must pay the toll. One must step into the light." A glance darted between her friends, and the realization burned bright. This was more than just their past sins, it was their chance for redemption. "I'll step forward." Sarah said fiercely, eyes blazing with conviction. Let it be me. No. Billy cried, panic rising in his voice. You can't sacrifice yourself. We're in this together. Listen to her. Jason's voice echoed with urgency, shimmering through the shadows. If it means breaking these chains, let her be the one. No. You deserve better. Jen insisted, stepping beside Sarah. We must take the burden together. An intense wave of fear dashed through them as their fraught unity seemed to fracture. We have to face the truth. Brian shouted, shaking as he caught Sarah's gaze. If we can admit our guilt, all together, we might dispel this darkness. Tommy seized the chaos, relishing their tension. Then who among you is willing to serve? Who will expose the truth and lay bare your darkest secrets? The patrons froze, glancing at one another, the weight of potential accusations pressing into the fabric of their bonds. Shadows recoiled, heightening their growing tension. Please, Sarah whispered as they all believed they could face the horror hand in hand. Find your courage. It's what broke our friendship before. Jason urged, fear vibrating in his voice. In that moment, her friends stepped into the light, one by one, each clutching their hearts, each seeking to break free from the shackles that had bound them. Finally, it was Brian who spoke, voice trembling but resolute. That night, we were all scared. We didn't know how to handle the truth. But we pushed you away, Jason. We still question who we were. And now, we know we can't escape it any longer. The room's energy shifted, pulsing with an electric charge that sent ripples of light through the corners. Can this be the moment of honesty? Tommy's voice rang, an unsettling delight coloring his words. Yes. Jen shouted, straightening her shoulders, heart racing as she spoke, we must all confess. We laughed when we shouldn't have and we left you. In unison, they added, together. It was a night we thought we could laugh through, a mistake we allowed to bloom into shadows. Darkness receded, flickering lights surged like waves lapping against the shore. The shadows began to dissolve as light filtered into the space, courage ignited behind every word spoken. In their awakening, truth carried a weight of hope, a realization that one truth could finally break the chains. And amidst that moving current, they began to feel the seams of their friendship weaving back together, stronger than ever. Jason's form flickered with the light, and for the first time, a smile graced his features. You've unlocked it. I can finally rest. He said, voice tinged with relief, not just for him but for all of them. And just like that, as the walls began to blur and darken once more, light surged forth like a phoenix rising from the ashes. Their memories transformed into something that now embraced them, tangled histories evolving into a balm for their souls. A profound silence fell. With each beat of their hearts, they committed to walking through the shadows of their own making, united by the willingness to face the consequences of their secrets. Love overcomes fear, Sarah whispered, a knowing glimmer in her eye as she turned to Tommy one last time. Farewell, he smirked, shadows lifting, dissolving into nothingness, leaving only echoes behind. In the end, their intertwining destinies swirled around them, forging a new chapter together past the bone-chilling horrors of the past. As dawn broke outside, shards of light spilled through the bar windows, illuminating their shared burdens with hope. They had entered a realm steeped in darkness and emerged, finally, whole. The nightmare was over, now it was just a beginning. So, if you felt the pull of these stories tonight, if you were hooked, then now is your moment to act. You need to subscribe immediately to the channel to catch our next exclusive tales. Smash that like button now so we can feed the algorithm and keep this community thriving. Flood that comment section with your reactions and insights. Let us hear your thoughts about the ending, and please, instantly share this video with at least 5 friends who deserve to hear these stories. Don't wait even one more second to show your support. Only true fans like you understand the importance of lifting our narrative together.